What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the one and only Dead Red podcast. Appreciate you guys being here for whoever will show up, obviously. Obviously, we're doing this in afternoon time. We're a week away from opening day, and that's when our two teams verse. It's going to be real exciting. This show is going to be real exciting as well. Today, we're going to revitalize our predictions and talk about some other things. As we mentioned, week away from the regular season. So that ought to be real exciting. Sox, how you doing?
We're doing good, man. We started. Hope you're doing well. Everybody watching as well. We started hot in spring training. Red Sox were swinging the bats well. The pitching was doing well and holding teams to only like 1 or 2 runs in spring training, which doesn't happen often. And yeah, I had to grab my notes as well. But Red Sox are rolling right now. Rafael Devers swinging a hot bat. We want to get to New York as fast as possible, man. I'm feeling really good about this, especially after that Trevor Story signing. I think our AL East predictions are going to look a little bit different now. I'm feeling good. How about you?
Spring training is spring training, especially with the Yankees. I can't take too much stock into it. Especially the way this team was constructed this offseason. But, they've been winning some games. They've been losing some games. Last night, they blew a big one to Toronto. And funny enough, on Boys in the Big Apple podcast last night, we had a Toronto Blue Jays guest. So we were talking as, the game was going on. But obviously got some great insight from Scott Belford from the Walk Off podcast. If you haven't already, go check him out. If you're viewing on my channel, obviously, you go back and watch last night's episode. It was really fun. But I'm not going to take too much stock into anything, obviously. There's a couple of battles I think that have been won. We have spring training games, I think, until next Tuesday. So, definitely a lot to come into play there. They've started optioning guys. But I'm really excited to get into these predictions. However, I have to be a little selfish for just a second for 2 reasons. One, I haven't drinking anything all day other than tea, so I'm going to pour myself a little Pepsi real quick. And
Nice.
2, I have something to air out, and this is no surprise to anyone, because unfortunately, and I never thought I would see this, the Yankees have become a team to make excuses to justify losing. Now, that was a term that was coined by a Jets content creator, so you kind of know the path I'm going on. Shouts to Greg John in the chat. But Brian Cashman today, and I woke up, I honestly wasn't feeling too good because I had coldish symptoms, but I still went to school anyway. Nothing COVID. Obviously, I'm not that stupid. If I had COVID issues, I would have stayed home. But then my brother wakes me up and tells me, Brian Cashman's back blaming the Astros again. I'm like, what are you talking about? So he basically said today that, it was disgusting, all this other stuff. And I'm like, dude, you know what? And then there's fans that actually come out and say, well, Brian Cashman hates the 2017 Yankees as much as the Yankees fans hate the 2017 Yankees. I'm going to take a sip and dive into that. Here are so many hypocritical points to get to that, and kind of it's just a whole fucking bullshit spin argument. They hired, shouts to Megan in the chat. What was I going to say? In terms of Cashman, in terms of the Yankees organization, they hired Carlos Beltran and Cameron Maybin, both on that 2017 Astros team, to the YES Network. So I don't know how you could sit there and say that. Meanwhile, you got 2 guys, Beltran being one of the main perpetrators, and say that, but also, as I mentioned, the fan page that did call and say, oh, well, Brian Cashman, this, and this, whatever. Thinking to myself, shouts to Tony Clark in the chat as well. How many Yankee fans wanted Carlos Correa, right? How many Yankee fans wanted?
Everybody.
We have Marwin Gonzalez. That's also one of the things as well. Maybe, obviously probably didn't play as much of a role, but Marwin Gonzalez was an Astro a long time. So I don't understand the reason why we're coming out and saying this. I honestly think, because you do see it sometimes where they'll hold a team or what a player or what a general manager says for a couple months and then release it for some unknown reason. That was what happened with Garrett Cole and Brett Gardner, where the incident happened in like July, and then they held it out till September, October, where everybody started finding out about it. That's what I think happened here. But nonetheless, I mean, it's just an abomination of an excuse. I mean, excuses are abominatory, but I don't understand what the relevance is. I don't. And if you think about it this way, Sox, and I'll get your thoughts on this, there's two ways you could look at this in two different sections due to two different pathways. A, you may, that letter could be unsealed. So you have no rights to really say, oh, well, the Astros cheated and, this, that, and the other thing. You have no right to say that because 2015, even though it didn't mean anything, you're still on, you still got caught red-handed, despite the fact that being a letter sealed, whatever the bullshit there is. And then you also are being hypocritical of yourself in two ways this week, really. Point A is you're saying, oh, the Astros cheated, that's why you didn't win the World Series. Then you could point to, different circumstances and say, well, Joe Girardi got fired because the Astros cheated. I mean,
Right.
It doesn't make any sense there. Obviously, I'm not a big Girardi homer. He obviously did what he did in a Yankees uniform and as a manager as well. And I don't go back to that era very much when I talk about Aaron Boone. But with that being said, you look at those circumstances and say, hey, you basically brought Aaron Boone in and unproven over Joe Girardi because the Astros are the ones that cheated. That doesn't make any sense. And also this week, he says, and this is going back to like November-ish when moves started being made by different clubs. He says, oh, we have flexibility. We have latitude, meaning Brian Cashman in terms of the offseason moves, the money. And then he says this past week, oh, we the reason that we didn't get a superstar is because of the contracts that we have on this roster. I'm thinking to myself, whose fucking fault is that? Aroldis Chapman, Josh Donaldson for $50 million over the next 2 years, Aaron Hicks, Luis Severino, Zach Britton, Chad Green. These are, Britton, who's on the IL, is going to be on the IL for the rest of the season. And then you have Chapman, who's making $18 million, $31 million. You tell me that does not, you couldn't have done something with that money? But all they did was go out there, get Donaldson, Kiner Falefa, and then re-sign Anthony Rizzo. So, real quickly, I just want to read a comment before I ask you some of your thoughts. Forget 2009, the Yankees have never been the same since Arizona beat them in 2001. I mean, to be fair, that somewhat is a sort of good statement because you take a look at 2001, right? I mean, obviously you look at Tino Martinez and some of these other cats, but it was really more of a homegrown thing. Meanwhile, you look at 2009, that's Brian Cashman. That's more of his doing, where he spent $500 million on Teixeira, Burnett, and CC Sabathia, and you look at the guys like Jeter, like Cano. I mean, Cano at the time, he was only 4 years in the bigs. But you take a look at Pettit, those guys were just aging out, right? They were on the bitter end of their careers. So that's when he had to supplement $500 million in free agency. Meanwhile, you look at 2001, that was actually a coordinated series of playoff runs and World Series pennants. So, Sox, I've been talking a lot. If you want to implement
no worries.
the Yankees.
We only get to talk once a week, so this is our last podcast before opening day. I think we're gonna do the podcast on opening day still, correct?
Yep, nighttime. I mean, I'm not gonna be doing anything major after I go out to the stadium. I'll just be coming home doing whatever. But by podcast time, we'll be able to do something. So
check out the rest of the MLB.
Yeah, we'll be touching all of it. I mean, I know there's gonna be games going on and stuff like that, but just because we're going live doesn't mean that's the end of the day for us. We'll be live at nighttime talking about the game and some other stuff, but continue.
Nice, cool. So yeah, you mentioned you weren't feeling well. I'm glad we could still get on here and do this as part of the tradition, on Thursdays. Shout out to the chat, Greg and John. Shout out to Megan. Tony Clark is here. What's up? Good point about the 2009 Yankees. That's our only championship in a long time. I mean, to blame the Astros World Series on that, I mean, since 2009 they haven't won. I mean, we got an excuse for all those years. I mean, I don't understand that part of that whole thing with Cashman, but I've been pretty well. I've been pretty good. I've been working a lot. I wish I had more time to come on here and do Red Sox content. No worries on opening day. We're going to be going live twice, guys. Super excited about that. And Red Sox have just been producing right now. I can't be happier about Rafael Devers and Trevor Story. We saw him get his first single, first RBI in a Red Sox uniform. It just looks perfect. I imagine the Green Monster is going to have a few more dents in it than it has in previous years. But they're doing well with the payroll. The pitching staff is doing well. Shout out to Nick Pivetta, Michael Wacha, new addition to the Red Sox, pitching well. He pitched today, gave up one bomb, a couple earned runs, but I think he's only given up 5 earned runs in all of spring. He's got a couple wins. I couldn't be happier. Again, like I said, I just want to get to New York as fast as possible. It seems like we just are on a roll right now. And again, like you said, you don't want to take too much weight with spring training. Like I'm the opposite. I feel like that's a big momentum, like especially with the guys that we bring up. There's 2 roster spots open right now and Jonathan Arauz is trying to make one of them. And it's just electric watching him trying to earn his spot on the team. It's almost like he's playing it harder than he's ever played. I just love watching spring training, man. It's great. So overall, like baseball's back. Couldn't be happier. We just need to appreciate this last week of spring and I'm feeling good about it.
Yeah, I mean, we almost didn't. Feels like go back a month ago, which would have been what February 28th, around maybe even a little bit more than that. We were like, okay, we're not having baseball this year.
I was at that point. I was ready to give up.
There are people that just don't like spring training, and they have different opinions. But I think this year is definitely a year to appreciate baseball.
Yeah.
Now, turn it to a flip side. That doesn't mean you can't complain about the wrongs of your team, especially in a Yankees standpoint. And the reason why I say I don't take too much stock out of spring training is Kyle Higashioka's hit 4 home runs. And yeah, that's great, but that's not the hitter he is in the regular season. Momentum push definitely could be something, but the Yankees have been so on and off during the spring. It's not necessarily something to take away on.
That's fair.
And then with that being said, we've had so many players over the years just do well in spring training. Then they come out and shit the bed in the regular season, Greg Bird being one of them. He actually may make the roster for the Blue Jays. I was talking to, once again, Scott Belford last night, and he said that he could be a lefty bat coming off the bench, and what a story that would be. Definitely. So one of our first things, just to recap off the spring training, is who has stood out to you in spring training so far? I mean, obviously, you said that Jonathan Arauz was trying to make a roster spot. You mentioned Bobby Dahlbeck several times. Give your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so my big standout players are obviously Dahlbeck. I called him the king of spring, and it's true. He's the best spring training player in the last 2 years. He just hits home runs. That's just how it goes. He's only hit 3 home runs this spring. I forget how many he had last year, but this dude is different. And then Rafael Devers, he's the guy that I just want him to keep rolling this hitting into New York. Like I feel like he's the guy that's actually carries that into the regular season. You mentioned Higashioka. He struggles, but like you mentioned, he's hitting the ball well in spring. Ryan Fitzgerald, prospect for the Red Sox. I hadn't heard much about him before this, and he's hit 4 home runs. He's got 9 RBIs, tied for 3rd in the MLB. And the dude sees the ball well, hits the fastball well, disciplined with the breaking ball. And I'm excited to see what he's got. I don't think he's cut out for the roster spot yet. Like I mentioned, Cora said there's 2 open spots, but Fitzgerald's going to be a name that we see in the future for sure. Now, Michael Wacha has 2 wins on the spring. Like he pitched today as well. I think they're tied right now with the Twins 3-3. We see a lot of the Twins every spring. He's a free agent signing that's going to be good for us in a bullpen and a starting role, whatever it's going to be. I think he might get one of the 5 spots. But he's pitched both in his career, and we're excited to see what he has to offer. And then Nick Pivetta, super excited to have him on the squad again. 16 strikeouts this spring. I think he's going to pitch tomorrow, if I am not mistaken. And those are those are a handful of guys right there that we're gonna look to roll that momentum into regular season and like just give me to New York. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah, I have a once we obviously come up upon it later with opening day, I have a prediction honestly of how this series is gonna go. But we'll leave it to that. Shouts to Jets Mess. One of my newest subscribers. Thank you to everybody in the chat. Definitely ask some baseball questions if you have. Obviously, we'll be willing to take them. That's what makes the show even more fun when you guys engage in the chat, and you guys are a big part of this and why this show keeps rolling, even though we just started. So a couple of guys who've stood out for me in spring training, and of course I'll mention one right there automatically because he fucked up yesterday, and this is why you don't put him at fucking shortstop. Is Gleyber Torres. He's done really well this spring. Nice. He's got some hits off the end of the bat, which I've been like, okay, it's hits off the end of the bat. I'm not going to take too much stock into it. Positively because you want to have a quicker swing. You don't want to, all that other stuff, baseball mechanics. And then yesterday against the Blue Jays, Chopper, which a normal shortstop would charge and throw to first, but he didn't do that. He didn't charge it. Instead he waited on it and then threw it to second. I think he was safe or whatever. There was a chance, I think, for a double play, and he didn't turn it.
And they got no outs?
And I don't think it would. Yeah, actually, it may have been 1 out or no outs because you think about it this way. And I, at the time, I was actually not watching it. I was doing a couple other things at the time. But when I was in the premiere chat for another channel I'm on, NYY News TV, I have a podcast with my brother on there, and it was premiering, and somebody started mentioning some stuff that happened in the game. One was a fucked up call by the umpire or something like that, but it turned into like a 3 or 4 run inning because of one of those plays. And I'm like, this is why he cannot play shortstop. So I'm hoping, and someone said this, and I totally agree with it, being a baseball player, former baseball player myself, it is harder to be any other position, then convert yourself to shortstop than it is shortstop, convert yourself to another position. Because shortstop, you have to be born into. Now, obviously, there may be some, standouts, others that are in there that may have been other positions and converted well at shortstop. But I don't think that Gleyber Torres was ever going to be a fit at shortstop. And, 2020 should have been a real eye-opener. This guy can't play shortstop. So I think they should have figured out their options there. Obviously, 2021, they played him 90% at shortstop. Didn't go over well. And obviously, once again, yes, it is spring training, but I don't want to see him at shortstop. I don't want to see him at shortstop. I don't think he puts the effort in. So he's one guy that stood out besides that one play.
Good point.
Under 55 wins for the Orioles. Let's see. 55, 162. So that would make, let me do the math.
107.
107, 100. I would say, I got to look at the record last year. I mean, they haven't done anything spectacular because it's the Orioles, and they're still going through a rebuild that's been lasting so many years.
52 and 110. They lost 110 games last year.
Okay.
Cedric Mullins is a baller, man. You want him in the leadoff spot. I like him a lot, actually.
I wanted the Yankees to trade for him, but obviously nobody's trading with the rival unless you give up a shit amount of prospects. And then another guy who, once again, obviously that team sucks, and I just feel bad for a guy like Cedric Mullins. Trey Mancini, too. I mean, he's a baller at first base.
Yeah.
And then there's obviously a couple other guys on there, but I would definitely say over 55 wins for the Orioles. They're still going to be in last place in the AL East. I think you could bank on it.
It's such a good division. I think they're going to win more than 55 games, and they're probably going to still be last, which is unfortunate for them. But
yeah. So some other guys that have stood out to me in spring training, Kyle Higashioka. I mean, obviously, I mentioned, he's probably not going to translate that to the regular season, but he's hit 4 home runs. I think he's had 1 or 2 multi-home run games, which is very big for him. Very big, for a guy that doesn't hit with too much power. It's more contact. He's not really a good hitter. But he's probably going to be the opening day starting catcher in terms of that because, A, he's Garrett Cole's buddy. B, Ben Ward vet, and is probably could be put on the IL. I don't even know what's going on with him at this point. The catcher we got from the Twins, but Rob Brantley or Ben Ward vet. I mean, just a terrible job by not having a plan for the Yankees at catcher. But Kyle Higashioka, I have been impressed with him this spring. Josh Donaldson's done all right. I mean, he had an RBI double yesterday. He had a home run a couple of days ago. I think it was against Pittsburgh or against another team. But he's done well. He's done well. I mean, I think that's going to translate in the regular season. Is he going to hit something like 270? No, because he's 36 years old. That body's wearing down. Philip Evans has done okay. He's not going to make a roster spot, though. I think there's way too many intangibles, really, with one guy I'm about to mention, and once again, former Red Sox, Marwin Gonzalez. Obviously, I've said multiple times just on this channel and on other channels, and just overall mentioned this a lot, is that Marwin Gonzalez would have been the greatest signing about 5 years ago.
He was good for us. I liked him a lot. He was we needed that veteran too that could play second base. Like he was really good, and he can hit the ball in the clutch. And they signed him to a minor league deal, right? Am I correct?
Right. That. I believe that is correct in the invitation to spring training. They also did that with Shelby Miller, but that's someone who hasn't even gotten a chance yet.
I would expect him to see the big leagues with you. I mean, I really would.
Yeah. So with Marwin Gonzalez, he's been absolutely fire this spring. I'm not going to take too much into it because I don't see him playing a big role. I think he will make the roster. Just as a early thing before we go into our 28-man predictions, stuff like that, because the roster is extended to 28 through May, so they will carry the 2 extra players or how many ever. But Marwin Gonzalez, I think, brings a lot of intangibles to the Yankees that kind of replaces a few different things. He has played everywhere except for catcher in his career. He's pitched one game, but you're not going to get that out of him, obviously, unless you're getting fucking blown out, probably by the Red Sox. But with that being said, he plays the outfield a lot. He plays a lot of the infield, so he's very versatile. If you don't want to trust Gleyber Torres at shortstop, maybe he goes to shortstop. Kiner Falefa has a day off for some reason. Kiner Falefa is the DH, or Josh Donaldson, he needs a day off, and you don't necessarily have that third baseman, and you don't have Oswald Peraza up. You move Marwin Gonzalez. So versatility plays a big role. Has hit for power really well. Obviously, he won't see as much time because he's going to be a bench player if he does make the roster. A lot of people compare his versatility to Tyler Wade, and I think those are two different players because one hits for contact and speed.
Yeah.
The other guy's just power and, so versatile. But I don't think Tyler Wade had the IQ to he's got speed, and that's what Yankee fans obsessed. He had some good games last year. He was on was hitting like 270, 280 for a little bit, but not too many at bats, so you can't take too much out of that. And he just didn't have the baseball IQ, in my opinion. And then they let him go to the Angels, I believe it was. But one more player, actually, Isaiah Kiner Falefa. I think he's impressed me this spring, and obviously, I think next is our lineup predictions and stuff like that.
Yeah.
With Kiner Falefa, and I've disagreed with people in my own network for this, and I'll get to Greg's question in just a second. I think Kiner Falefa honestly could be a leadoff hitter. Now, you take a look at the lineup. My buddy, Gary Sheffield Jr., whose dad is Gary Sheffield at NYY News TV, he doesn't like the idea of Kiner Falefa. He, leading off. He likes him 7th in the lineup, 8th in the lineup, 6th in the lineup. And his thing is, well, that's a stopgap option. See, I don't really look at that. I look at what you can do. And to me, other than a guy like DJ LeMahieu, who else do you have in the lineup that's a leadoff, that could be a leadoff hitter, if LeMahieu needs a day off or something like that? Because realistically, and this will happen this year, and I know it's going to happen because Aaron Boone is a buffoon, and so is the front office. They'll put Rizzo hitting first, on occasion. They'll do that in a couple of different scenarios. Maybe it's Gallo or Judge or whatever the case may be. But Kiner Falefa, what he brings to the table, and once again, I throw away the entire, he's just a stopgap. And whether that be true or not true, I'm not taking that into account as a quality to be a leadoff hitter. He's done that multiple times this spring. He's had base hits. I don't give a shit about his OBP. I don't give a shit about his OPS. He puts the ball into play. I think he's got speed. Could still definitely a couple of bases this year. Unfortunately, that's something the Yankees don't want to do. But once again, you go back to the thing. Besides Diesel Mayhew, who are the leadoff hitters? Who are the guys that hit for contact? You barely have any. So, in my opinion, Isaiah Kiner-Falefa has done well this spring, and I think he should get some leadoff opportunities in 2022. Greg asks, the AL East looks interesting again. Do you think it's going to be a tight race like it was last year? Shouts to Cookus in the chat as well.
Dude, Cookus, that's one of my best subscribers. That's one of our Astros fans in the chat. That's always on our streams. Shout out, Cookus.
So he probably doesn't care for Brian Cashman's comment if he paid attention to that today, but I discussed that, but he could bring it back in the conversation. Yeah, it's definitely going to be a tight race. I mean, next Monday, I'm going to have a Rays fan on, someone who covers them, and I'll talk about some of the, they didn't make too many offseason moves, but I don't think, just put it in a Rays standard for a second and maybe put yourself in a Rays fan's shoes. I don't think they need to do a lot to get where they want to go. And obviously the World Series, they've been there once in the last few years, but Kevin Cash, though I disagree with him in a lot of his analytical standpoints, I think that he's a good manager for the way that team is set up and the way they do things in the front office. So I think the Rays, a lot of people are sleeping on them. The Blue Jays are the top. I mean, I will admit it. If I had to admire a rival in their process, it'd be the Blue Jays because they've really done some nice things this offseason. The Red Sox, they're definitely going to be up there. I mean, yeah, Trevor Story and, maybe a lot of other people are not impressed with what they did. Maybe they are, whatever the case would be. I think the Red Sox can be up there because of Alex Cora and the way he just goes out there and maximizes the talent on the field. Shouts to Al, Red Sox fan.
What's up, Al, Red Sox fan?
And then the Yankees, they will try to be a contender. They will contend for the playoffs. We'll get into predictions obviously later, but it is going to be a tight race. And, somebody said it on Twitter yesterday, and it's really weird because this person usually tends to be on my side of thinking, which is questioning what the Yankees do, not just being a shill or a homer and stuff like that. And then he said yesterday, oh, well, why do people think that the Blue Jays are going to win the division? They have 4 players that can't play defense. And I'm like, well, you look at the hot corner, Matt Chapman's there. Randall Grichuk, I mean, they traded him for Tapia. That's a 4th outfielder, obviously. Teoscar Hernandez, yeah, he's not great defensively, but, I don't understand. You take a look at that and you say that about, the Blue Jays. And I don't mean to be that guy that, shits on his own fan base, but there's just times where it's really irritating. And you also have to realize the facts. They have a lot of power bats in the lineup.
Right.
I brought up a point, and it's starting to get back to me a little bit yesterday about, this is the point. So Scott Belford of the Walk-Off podcast said yesterday, one of the problems with the Blue Jays and why they brought Raimel Tapia over from the Rockies because they don't have too many lefty bats. Now, obviously, we can compare that to the Yankees last season at the beginning of the season. Now, here's the problem, though. You have the Blue Jays who have a lot of power in the lineup. So you're not concerned about, production, this, that, and the other thing. You're not concerned about splitting them up necessarily. You got Vlad. You got Bo Bichette. If you want to put Kevin Biggio in the lineup, you can. Teoscar Hernandez. Meanwhile, the Yankees had Giancarlo Stanton, DJ LeMahieu, who didn't have a good season last year, and Aaron Judge. That was it. That was it for the players that were actually productive. Hicks, he fucking sucked. He did. Where it is, he sucked. So
he really did.
You compare those two situations with their, lack of lefties, with our lack of lefties from last year. They obviously have it better and they're built better. So, those are just my thoughts on the way the AL East may stack up in terms of all that stuff.
I agree. I think it's going to be a tight race except for Baltimore. I think people are a little bit high on Toronto, especially with the competitiveness of this division. Where did I have them in our first predictions? I have them right here. I don't know if you have yours. I have yours too. I have Toronto finishing 3rd, and you had Toronto finishing 3rd.
3rd in
the division.
I had them finishing third. I thought I had them finishing first.
And well, it looks like we both had Tampa Bay at the top of the division.
Wow.
But anyways, I think Toronto. People are a little bit high on Toronto. I think the Red Sox and Yankees are gonna be right there with each other. I really do. The Yankees fan base. It seems like there's like turmoil all the time. It's almost like the Giants fan base. Like it's 50-50 right down the middle. They don't decide what they want to do, and it seems like as an outsider, that's what it seems. And
Go ahead.
and I don't know. It leads to a lot of conflict. Like the management doesn't seem like they know what they want to do. Like they're reading the fan base, but nobody knows exactly what they need. But that's just what it seems like. And so I think Yankees fans are split on what they're gonna do this year. I think they're gonna be competitive. I think Toronto finishes down there in the bottom with Baltimore, but Tampa Bay, New York, and the Red Sox are gonna be super close. So if that makes the whole division tight, I don't know. I think there's gonna be two bottom feeders though, personally.
Al Red Sox fan kind of brings up a good point about the shift, but let me say this. In terms of the Yankees, honestly, I'm going to slightly disagree with you, and obviously we'll do that a lot on this show.
Mhm.
But here's the way I see it from an insider standpoint. The front office is doing a lot of shit. They're running it back almost every year with the same guys. And sometimes you can afford to do that in baseball. Like football, if a guy
Right.
gets injured, you're gonna draft over them. You're gonna sign another player to make sure, okay, we got this position filled. Let's go to our next need. In baseball, because it's a longer season and there's a lot of other intangibles that go into that, you're a little bit more patient. That's why they've brought Aaron Hicks back and all these other players back because they've been injured. I guess that's why they took a chance on Corey Kluber last year. Same thing with Jamison Tyen and some of the other guys that they brought in. But they've been running it back the last couple of years. And the reason why I wanted them to go after some of these big name free agents because they have to overcompensate for their very diluted way of baseball with their manager, with the front office and stuff like that. So you have to overcompensate with talent. And the way they've been running it back, and why does this go to the thing we were just talking about with the fan base, is that for the last couple of years they've been doing that with Boone, and then the standard lowers, so that all these fans now are
I agree.
accepting, and a lot of these fans are not. And I'm not teaching anyone to be spoiled. This is what the Yankees mantra is: going to the playoffs, deep playoff runs, not just getting bounced from the AL wildcard game by the Astros, by the Red Sox, by this team, by that team. That's not the mantra. That's like a Rays mantra, maybe in the past. I don't know. My point is, they've been doing this shit for years and they have been getting away with it. And then the fan base says, okay. And to the point where in the off season, whether it was during lockout or not, people were saying, well, you know what? I could take Trevor's Story if the Yankees miss on Correa. Like, why is that a thing in your head that's acceptable?
Right. No, yeah. It's like well, first things first, you can't tell anyone how to be a I hate when
No,
people tell people
absolutely.
how to be a fan, but at the same time, you have to keep it's so much better when everybody's on the right track. That's all I'm trying to say, you know? It's like it seems like the Red Sox fans are all in on Bobby Dahlbeck being our first baseman. We're all in on Trevor Story being our second baseman. We're all in on Xander Bogaerts staying at short. We love Rafi Devers. Like it seems like it's all painted out right in front of us, but it doesn't seem that way on the other side. You know what I'm talking about? Like
Yeah.
it's better when everybody's on the right track. And I see it as a Giants fan. Like I'm a diehard New York Giants fan. Daniel Jones, Saquon Barkley, Joe Judge. I mean, it's always a conversation on who do you love, who do you hate. Dave Gettleman. I understand what it's like, but on the baseball side of things, it just seems like we're ready to go win right now, and that's what we want to do, 100%.
Yeah, and I think we discussed this the last time around. It's also the fact that the Giants are a big market team. They're in New York. They get a lot more attention. Where the Red Sox, they're a big market, but you don't necessarily it's not the biggest market. It's not
Right.
like LA, it's not like New York. And then obviously, the Cubs are given the mantra, especially their fan base, of lovable losers because they don't expect too much out of the team, especially within the last few years, before and after the World Series. So they're likely more to agree on everything. rather than the Yankees, where you have the older generation, which is expecting more, and
Good
then the
point.
younger generation, where they've only been around the last few years, so they're kind of expecting this, but they weren't, informed of, okay, this is what the mantra is, this is what the expectation should be. Jets mess says the Yankees lineup today is a joke. I will say that they've been mixing it up, so I'm not going to take too much stock into it, but um, just go over it real quickly, I guess. Kiner Falefa's, and I think they're getting beaten the shit out of by the Phillies, at least from what I hear from Twitter. I don't know what the score is at the moment. Not like I can watch it or anything, but Kiner Falefa's leading off. Then you got Marwin Gonzalez, Andujar. It's a total sham of a lineup. I mean, you really have what? No starters in that lineup. It's all guys that, just they're all depth guys, except for kind of for left, because he will be starting at shortstop, so that's the only starter in there.
Bobby
But I
Dahlbeck
know
did a
I
bomb
think
there.
I think Michael King, and I was just in a checking my Twitter notifications for a group chat, and I think he actually got rocked by Bryce Harper. Why do I point that out? Is because the last 2 days I've been bringing this up to multiple people, is that the Yankees, when they try to develop starting pitching, they always go to the bullpen, and it constantly fails when they try to bring that relief pitcher that they brought up and tried to be a starter back into starting pitching. It always fails, and that also strands from a conversation that we had yesterday with Scott Belford. He says, "Listen, I'm a Blue Jays fan. I hate the Yankees, but I will tell you, I admire the depth they have, and I don't think it's as bad as Yankees fans think it is when in terms of the starting rotation." So I answered with this: the Yankees have that. Once again, I mentioned the same problem of they bring up these starters and they automatically translate to the bullpen. So you have to depend on these guys, or you could go out and get starters. Obviously, the Yankees didn't do that. So that's what happens when you have Michael King getting his ass blown up in the first inning of a game, or Luis Hill not having his control there, Deivi Garcia. Those guys are good bullpen guys, but the Yankees don't know how to factor that in. And, in a day and age where bullpen is actually more used, just compare for a second, like NFL is more offensive turned rather than how many years ago where it was very defensive heavy. It's more, and this is obviously falling in the wings of the analytics and the way it's being used. You need a better bullpen probably than you need starters. I mean,
100%.
the Rays rotation, that's not necessarily the best. It's not eye popping like the Mets, but they still get it done because they have the bullpen guys like Yarborough and all these other cats in that bullpen. Whereas the Yankees, they try to morph those relief pitchers into starters. It does not work. And now,
I think
obviously,
that's a
once
good
again,
point.
maybe once in a while, you could fit in, King or Chad Green or whatever for a bullpen day. I fucking hate bullpen days, but that's the only situation where that's plausible.
Well,
So
I think that you made a good point of you trying to bring up these starters and they might not work out as starters, and you try to transition them to the bullpen or vice versa. I don't think it's that. Maybe you're right. Maybe they're not like forecasting that enough or taking into effect where you can't. A guy's been a starter his whole life, high school, college, and you try to make him a bullpen guy. He comes in a high pressure situation. I don't know if that's not good for a guy. I don't know. Guys aren't built to handle that kind of stress if they're not used to it, and vice versa. If you go out in the mound in the first inning and you're not used to it, and you're trying to make a bullpen guy a starter, it goes the same way. And bullpen's not only more used, like you said, but it's more important. And it's a good point that you said that you need a better bullpen almost than you need a starting five. And I think that's a really good point. Bullpen is going to be used so much more with great offense and more rules on the shift. I mean, it's going to be important to have a good back of the bullpen, especially in this competitive division with a lot of bats. Al Red Sox fan made an interesting comment here. He said, "I'll give you Dalbec for Rizzo." I want to see your thoughts on that, Big Blue, because I love Al Red Sox fan, but I'm a big fan of Dalbec. I want him on our squad. So, what do you think about
I would absolutely love that trade.
that? That's what I thought. That's what I thought.
I would absolutely love that trade. Not that Anthony Rizzo is the worst player in the world, but we had so many options, and I that was one of my main things last week was they had so many options and they did absolutely jack shit with it. Interesting question from Cargo Get Dough. I think he means Astros when he says this, or who he, she, whatever. Astros or Royals? Who y'all rocking with? What was I going to say?
I mean, I would rock with the Royals in a heartbeat over the Astros.
Well, I'm going to take it like this. Who's a better team? I'll take the Astros, obviously.
Houston.
Who's a better? Who would I root for? I've always had a soft spot for the Royals. I always have. For some reason, it's a soft spot for the Royals. Like Blue Jays, once again, that's like the one rival I admire.
Okay.
Bullpen days are awful. The pens are being overused now. Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you, and that's one of the flaws of Aaron Boone is, sometimes we as Yankee fans recognize, oh, this pitcher sucks or whatever, but he overused Chad Green a lot last year. I mean, in a situation, once again, Field the Dreams game, argue, oh, well, the balls are juiced and, for special events, whatever the case may be, he put Britt in that situation against a right-handed dominant lineup that was crushing Andrew Heaney. And then they didn't bring in Loaisiga, and you're like, oh, Loaisiga pitched the day before, whatever the excuse was, but they had an off day the next day, so that would have made sense totally. Athletics. Oh, all right, okay. Athletic. Well, I mean, I would root for the Royals in that situation, but if you're gonna add, maybe he's asking because he's betting on something.
Is that today?
I mean, he said he's about to drop $20K on the Athletics. Probably the. No,
Don't be asking us for advice if you're going to drop $20K on the Athletics.
I mean, the Athletics are probably still that better team.
I would take Oakland. I would take Oakland
because at least they have their starting pitching. Now, maybe a Royals fan will come yell at me and tell me what they have, but
hey, shout out Al Red Sox fan. Have a good one, my man. Thanks for stopping by. We appreciate it.
Yes, definitely. There was also another question I wanted to get to. It was also by Al Red Sox fan. What are your thoughts on the rule change of outlawing the shift? Why can't players just hit the ball the other way anymore? All freaking pull hitters. Sox, I'll let you start.
Yeah, I think we talked about this a little bit last time. I 100% agree. I think it would be 100% more fun if baseball could just be like they could play wherever they want. I'm a big fan of it. I don't like the rules on where guys can play. I think it'd be cool if it was a game of adaptation and if guys are shifting against you, learn how to hit the ball the other way. I 100% agree with Al Red Sox fan. If they're all going to be pull hitters, why wouldn't you shift to that side? That's baseball. If he's going to hit it over there every time, you go and stop it. I think it's as simple as that. I don't think there has to be a conversation.
I play both sides of the table, more leaning towards the opposite and say that they should ban some aspects of the shift, like the fucking 4 outfielders that the Rays do. I don't think that should. I don't think it should be a thing.
I love it. I fucking love it.
But to Sox's point and to Al Red Sox's fans' point, you have these pull hitters, and the baseball is a game of adjustments. It's also a game of bad habits, and the biggest. Now let me compare this to basketball, even though it is so much different in certain ways. Like when they installed that new rule that you couldn't initiate contact on the shot to get a foul, like the poster boy, in my opinion, for that was Trae Young, because he always does that. Even though he's a good basketball player, he always finds ways to draw fouls, and that's, he goes to the free throw line, and that's history. But the poster boy, I think, of this, especially since he made his comments, is Joey Gallo. Now, I sort of agree with him, but the problem is he doesn't give me enough ammo to fully agree with him, because he is an all or nothing hitter. There's 3 probabilities of how his at-bats can go: strikeout, home run, or walk. That's it. That's all he brings to the table. Yeah. And there's a lot of times, I've seen it in spring training, and I get it. It's spring training. You don't want to do anything major or give away anything, whatever the fucking excuse is. Yeah. Bunt to the left. Like, obviously, yes, this is probably the last year they will actually have the shift. And this is a contract year for Joey Gallo. So it's not like you have some 9-year extension on the table where, okay, this year I don't have to, hit against the shift. I can just keep hitting home runs and walks, doing all that crap. I get it that he's that type of baseball player, but when you literally have a third baseman, and third basemen really don't have too much range. Yeah, it's the hot corner, but it's not Derek Jeter, all these other guys at shortstop. Third base, and just give it a little tap. And the problem with that is Joey Gallo has speed. He can do that. If he just tapped it to the left side, he could probably beat out a ground ball against some of the third basemen that play.
Yeah.
Maybe not Chapman, maybe not some of these other cats, but against an older third baseman, he could probably beat out a ball. But once again, you turn that to a guy like Aaron Hicks, who doesn't have speed, who hits for power. I don't even know what the fuck he does, and just doesn't do that. I have a bigger problem with him because he does not contribute. Where Gallo, yes, he's got speed. He's a good defender, all this other stuff. Aaron Hicks, no. He said the other day on a podcast, I don't know if I mentioned the last time, he goes, the Yankees are going to have a fuck you mentality this year. No, fuck you. Get on the field and play. I don't get that.
See, I love the turmoil inside of the Yankees fans. I really do. We don't have that player. We don't have that player that they say something fucking stupid in the press conference and we're like, what are you stupid? We don't,
I wish we kept Gio Jets mess. Yeah, listen, that's contact hitter. That's a contact hitter you need. And
I like him.
Exactly. And that literally they stole the left side of the infield that we should have had. But anyway,
yep.
I made a point, I think it was yesterday, once again on Boys of the Big Apple, before we get into our lineup projections, that I value Gio Urshela on the Yankees higher than I value Donaldson. Now, not to say that Donaldson's the worst player in the world or he hasn't done well this spring. No. But in terms of what the Yankees are and what they do, Gio Urshela is better fit because you look at the context, it's kind of like a similar conversation to that leadoff hitter spot that we had a couple of minutes ago with Kiner Falefa. You look at contact hitters. You have DJ LeMahieu. You have Isaiah Kiner Falefa. That's about it in terms of contact hitters. Where you have a solid, you look at the lineup projections. Once again, we'll go into that next. Where you have a solid 5-6 guys in a row that just hit for power. Yes, they can hit the base hits and do all this stuff, but Gio could steal bases. I understand that Gio got hurt a couple of different times, but Josh Donaldson's 6 years old, and you're paying $21 million a year for him in the next 2 years. So okay, maybe Josh Donaldson is a better power hitter, but I value Gio's. I think he's better with defense, and I think he's just a better overall player in terms of what the Yankees need, not what they have.
He's younger, right? He's way younger, right?
He's like 29, maybe 30. And let me look at Gio Urshela. Gio Urshela is 30, and Donaldson's 36 years old. Once again, far cheaper.
There you go.
Far cheaper, and I think he's a lot more lean. But anyway.
Right, and that's a good point. You don't need a lot of range over there at third base. That's going to be the excuse is that's why you should put him there, because if you have good range at shortstop, big bat, as my apartment complex is cutting trees right outside. Excuse me. Nothing I can do about that. But I think he's good. He's going to be good for you guys. I don't understand that you want home run hitters all the time. You bring in Gallo, you bring in Rizzo, you bring in Josh Donaldson. It's either a home run, a strikeout, or a walk. Like you said, how many of those do you want on your roster? I want one or two at the most.
All right, and the Yankees have what? Judge, Hicks, Stanton, Donaldson, Rizzo, Gallo. That's 6. That's 6 guys.
That's your whole lineup.
Not to say they can't hit singles. I mean, Gallo can't. But...
Sure.
Oh, man. Jets mess says Gio could also play third and short. Gio was way better at defense. I mean, Gio, I personally, I know a lot of people didn't see it this way, but he was okay at shortstop, not like he was great. And obviously he's very athletic as a third baseman, so he kind of translate that to shortstop. But as a short-term option, I didn't see that as bad for a couple games during the season last year. Now, obviously full-time, that's not the case. Third base, yeah, Gio Urshela can play third. Any thoughts on don't know what you mean by this, but I don't know what you mean necessarily, but if you want to get back to us on
what's up, Tony? That's my man, Tony Clark. He'll retype it.
Yeah, I know. Greg John says, "Who do you think goes to the series?" That's going to be coming up. That's going to be coming up.
Spoiler.
Yep. Any thoughts on why Christian Yelich hasn't been the same the last few years? I was talking to my friend 2 days ago about that.
Interesting.
What the fuck?
Yeah, I have no idea. I don't know. I think it's because the Brewers aren't trying to really win. I really think that's why. Like that guy wants to win bad, but I don't know what it is, man. He is a hell of a ball player.
I mean, I'm not going to go as far out, and I'm going to disagree here, obviously, and say that they don't want to win or that they're like the bottom of the division. I think they've been mid-tier where they're not going to be okay. They're the constant winners, but they're going to be competing. I look at the Brewers and listen. I'm not a guy that's follows the Brewers. I'm not a guy that does that. However, with that being said, if they're looking at Christian Yelich to be the main piece, I don't think it's going to be that. I don't think Christian, you pair him up with Stanton, you pair him up with a couple other guys that he had in Miami. Okay, then you put him on the Brewers, they could probably make some noise. However, with that being said, Christian Yelich is probably that only main piece. I mean, I got to look at his stats. He's been hitting in the 190 section for the last
You can't really have a. You can't really have. Yeah, if you can't really have a 190 hitter and build. I mean, but they're not building around him offensively. Like if it wasn't for their pitching staff, I'm telling you, like you said, you made a good point. They're not bottom of the league. They're mid tier, but. Yelich is by himself, and they're not building around him at all offensively. It feels like they tried to bring Jackie Bradley in there as center field. We talked about how bad he was last year. I think he was hitting in the 100, something. But that's a good point. He's not gonna win by himself.
So he hit 248 last year, struck out 113 times. In the Mickey Mouse 2020 season, he hit 205. His first 2 years were really good with the Brewers, though. 326 and 329. I mean, those are fucking awesome numbers. Don't know what the hell happened. With that being said, let's move up into our lineup predictions, maybe opening day lineup predictions. Sox, I'll let you go first.
How about you go first while this leaf blower is literally right outside my window?
I've had that a couple of times. That's why I, sometimes they come on Mondays and I'm like, no, I'm not going to record that day. But with that being said, here's how I think the opening day lineup may look and how a lineup on a 4 or 5 day basis may look. I think DJ is going to lead off at second. Aaron Judge will be in right field. Joey Gallo will be in left field. Giancarlo Stanton will be the designated hitter. Then it will be Josh Donaldson at third. Anthony Rizzo at first, Aaron Hicks in center field, Isaiah Kiner for left at shortstop, and Kyle Higashioka as the catcher. This is what I was talking about, obviously, with the 5-6 guys in a row that are just power bats, and sometimes they don't hit for contact with Judge, Gallo, Stanton, Donaldson. And regularly last year, after they traded for those two lefty bats, they would try to balance it. I don't think they're going to balance it too much because they acquired Donaldson. I don't know. I just don't see that.
All right, let's do it. Let's just roll through it. I got Alex Verdugo in left field for us this year. Primarily, I know JD Martinez is going to be our DH, but he's going to play a little bit of left as well. It's an interesting outfield because all these guys are versatile. Like you don't know where we can plug and play them really wherever we really need to. Kike Hernandez is going to play center field, and that's a fact. Like we're not going to plug and place him at second base. Alex Cora said he's going to be our center fielder, and Kike is really excited about focusing on one position. He's always been that guy with the Dodgers, even going back to them that he didn't know where he was going to play day in and day out. So Verdugo in left. Kike Hernandez in center field. JBJ is going to play right. I mentioned to you last year that he's going to jump up on top of that right field wall that's like 3 feet high and rob a home run for the first time ever. Rafael Devers, obviously our third baseman. He's been struggling a little bit. I mentioned that his defense has come a long way. He's been struggling this spring a little bit. Those bare hand balls, it seems like he cannot make one of those plays. He bobbles every single one of them. He throws it into the stands. He throws it into the backstop. We need Rafi Devers to get his shit together defensively because his bat is rolling right now. Shortstop is going to be Xander going into his, I believe, 12th year as our shortstop, veteran guy. Got so much stuff under his belt. Such a great hitter. Big home run against the Yankees last year that we talked about last week as well. I just had to mention it, of course. Trevor Story, going to be our second baseman. We finally have a second baseman. Hopefully Manny Machado doesn't end his career like he did to Dustin Pedroia. And Bobby Dahlbeck's going to be our first baseman. Couple notes: Christian Vasquez, Alex Cora said, is going to be our backup first baseman right now. So not a very deep spot there at first base, but Christian Vasquez, talented, plays catcher, can probably pick balls over there at first base. I don't see why they would put him there if he couldn't. And Christian Arroyo is going to play shortstop for us when Xander Bogaerts DHs. That'll probably be JD when JD gets a day off. But those are a couple big notes right there. So we'll see Christian Arroyo at shortstop. It's a long throw for him. I haven't seen him over there. I think the radio only games is when he's been playing there at shortstop. So that's a long throw. But if Cora believes in him, I believe in him. So that's a couple good notes right there.
Now let me throw you a proposition. You obviously mentioned the not great defense by Devers. Is there any chance, and maybe you could throw in your thoughts and then what the Red Sox probably would do in your expectations? Is there any shot that Devers would go to DH and then you could put JD in right and maybe Bradley in center and then you could put Kike in the infield or move someone in the infield or whatever?
The only thing that I can see that they would do is put Xander at third. And I think that takes a lot away from his skill set at shortstop. And you mentioned it. They don't have to have a lot of range over there at third, especially anymore. Like, that's a hot corner, and you're either getting the ball hit to you or you're not. Like, it feels like at third base, like that, it's a hot corner. So it takes a lot away from Xander at short. So I don't see them moving Rafi to DH because we got two guys that can do it in Xander and JD. They've been rolling at that position. The other thing is Bobby Dahlbeck, but he's been trying to focus on first base. So I don't see them moving on from Devers. I know we talked a little bit about trading him, bringing another third baseman in, moving Xander to third, but no, he's going to be our third baseman. We just got to get over. He's got to get over that hump defensively. He's come a long way, but it's got to get better.
Okay, so let's move into the 28-man roster predictions. I'll start out. I'm gonna turn a twist in this. I'm gonna do the pitching last. I'm not gonna go through it all together, obviously, but I will do catcher and infield first. For the catchers, I think they'll keep Roordvet on the roster. They'll probably now. I don't know how severe this oblique strain is. Whatever the injury he has, once again, he's like Luke Voigt. He loves to lift those weights, which obviously can be a big problem at the MLB level, especially if you're a catcher, Anyway, I think they'll play Higashioka for the first couple of days. Then when Roordvet comes back, he comes back. If not, they could put him on the 15-day IL, do what they need to do, and bring up somebody else or Rob Brantley or whoever is in the system. And then Kyle Higashioka will be the starting catcher. In terms of your starting infielders, it's going to be Donaldson. It's going to be Connor Falefa, LeMahieu, and Anthony Rizzo. It pisses me off to a great extent that they're going to be flip-flopping Torres and LeMahieu. You're paying a lot of money for DJ LeMahieu, $15 million a year for a utility man. And someone said it best yesterday. Obviously Gleyber Torres has had a heck of a spring so far. Why don't you trade him while the stocks are high? I personally don't disagree with that. Maybe you could package in some prospects, and I'm getting too hopeful at this point, but trade Gleyber Torres, get a utility infielder. So Torres is going to be one of those utility infielders, in my opinion, really backup second baseman. I don't see him going to third base. Shortstop, he will play because Boone likes to piss us off that way. And the one guy I do have that has not made the Yankees roster before, obviously, I mentioned him earlier, Marwin Gonzalez. I think he brings a hell of a lot of versatility to this Yankees team. Definitely has that power bat. I think he would be good coming off the bench. And I think the versatility plays heck of a role. And obviously, there's guys battling for that backup infielder role, like Jose Peraza, like Phillip Evans. We could go even to the outfield when we talk about it. But I think Marwin Gonzalez has too much versatility for the Yankees to pass up, where in the infield, you don't have a shit ton of versatility. Like LeMahieu, yeah, he can play all around. Do I like that? No. Rizzo, obviously left-handed, can only play first base unless this is 1995 where Mattingly played third base in a game. Gleyber Torres, he can only play second. Kiner Falefa, he could play third a little bit. I think he could play second as well, but he's going to be the starting shortstop. And then Donaldson can only play third unless you're doing something where you're switching him over to first base. But once again, that's usually done earlier in a third baseman's career where you switch him over to first base, kind of like what the Blue Jays did with Vlad Guerrero Jr. But Gonzalez, besides Gleyber Torres, will be one of the utility/backup infielders. Sox?
All right, we going. So we're just gonna do infield, starting infielders first. Is that what we're doing? And then outfielders,
Catchers and infield.
Catchers and infielders. Okay, my bad. So catchers. First of all, Christian Vasquez, my boy, one of my favorite Red Sox players. He's gonna be our starting catcher, backup first baseman. We have Kevin Plawecki as his backup. Kevin Plawecki is a hell of a defensive player. And that's going to be our two catchers for the roster. Shout out to Rodani Baldwin, who had a nice spring, couple big shots, and a couple ground rule doubles in spring. I don't think he's going to make the roster, but look out for him in the future. As far as infielders, Jonathan Arauz fighting for a spot. There's 2 spots open. I don't think he's going to make the opening day roster, but I see him coming up in the future. Christian Arroyo will be another guy that's fighting for a spot, but I think he's going to make the roster because of what his offense did last year, especially that series in Atlanta. Had a big, big grand slam for us. Very, very good defensively. He's going to be the backup shortstop. And Xander Bogaerts, obviously, veteran, 12-year veteran. Bobby Dahlbeck going to be our first baseman. Rafael Devers struggling. And then you have Travis Shaw and Trevor Story. Travis Shaw, one of those guys that's kind of fighting for a spot, but I believe he's going to make those 2. So I'll take Christian Arroyo and Travis Shaw to make those final 2 spots. And as far as, and that's the infield. I mean, that simple as that. That's it.
Gregor John says, Sox, the Celtics are playing well.
Man, these boys, I did not believe in them. I posted a video ranting about the coach, ranting about the defense, and then from that point on, they turned it around. First in the East. Unbelievable, man. Cannot wait to go on a playoff run.
Yeah, and I saw you, I think it was yesterday, you called somebody a geek because they lost. I think that it was them that you were talking about, and they lost or something, whatever. You go, look at this geek.
They lost to Miami, and he says something like, we lost to a poverty franchise. It's over. The season's done. We're still first in the East. This guy, I mean, Celtics fans are one of those worst too, or it's a split all the time. And it was like with Kemba Walker. It was with Dennis Schroeder. It was with a whole bunch of players. Al Horford coming back. Guys didn't like it. I mean, I just don't understand. They're playing better now than they have in a long time.
Well, it's better than what the Knicks are doing, obviously. I mean, they have to win every single game, and the Hawks have to lose every single game to go into play-in. And obviously, I went to the Knicks game on Monday night when they won against the Bulls. So I mean, that was fun. Got a free refill. I mean, the first time I went to a Knicks game, they lost against the Hornets and did some pretty. They put in. I remember 2019. They put in Wayne Ellington instead of R.J. Barrett in the final seconds, and I'm like, what are you doing?
It's like obviously, the Pelicans pulling Zion because he's on a minute restriction when the whole arena is chanting for him and he hit 2 threes and then they pulled him.
Yeah. And then I went to the Rangers game, which was my first Rangers game the night before, and they won. So 2 nights at the Garden, 2 wins for
nice, dude.
Me. There was a point I was going to bring up. I think okay, whatever that point was, it just crossed my head, and obviously that is gone.
Oh, anyway. I had a question. Is there one Red Sox player that you'll root for? Because my Yankee player, and there's not always a player on the Yankees that I'll root for, but this year is Marwin Gonzalez. I fucking love that guy. Is there one guy that you?
Let's say one or two.
Say, you know what? They're my rival, but we'll root for.
I want to say Garrett Whitlock or Bobby Dahlbeck. I know I'm making you smile with the Dahlbeck thing, but Garrett Whitlock, I mean, I just hate that we let him go, and he was decent for Boston last year, and
He
could
was.
be good for you guys, you know, in the long term as a bullpen option.
Right. All right, cool.
This will be the first time that a 90-win team will finish fourth in the division. Hashtag AL East.
Okay.
I honestly, I mean, if that's the Yankees, like prospectively, I have them 95 wins. And just a spoiler, I don't necessarily have them in the top two in the division. So that could very much be possible. And just because the Yankees may not be, you know, in the playoffs or whatever I predict them to be, I think they will still be in it. I mean, I'm not going to be fucking that negative. Um, but in terms of the outfield, I have the Yankees getting 6 outfielders on their roster. And I will explain why I bring another one on. Don't worry, none of them is Brett Gardner, at least not yet. Hopefully he just stays away. Starting outfield, it's going to be Joey Gallo, Aaron Hicks, and Aaron Judge. Then you have the DH, which is Giancarlo Stanton, which leaves one or two guys to be on the bench. Tim LeCastro, now I feel that they should not have brought him back. I mean, it's great that he's rehab from this ACL, injury, within a fast pace of time. But Estevan Florial is in the minor leagues. I think he's ready. I think he should be the starting center fielder, honestly. But, in that case, why spend extra money on LeCastro when you can go to Florial? I mean, that doesn't make any sense. But smarter Yankees in that one. Why do I have them carrying Miguel Andujar? Andujar is one of those prospects that the Yankees have just held on to for the longest time. And it pisses me off that they couldn't get anything for him and that they held him on for the longest time. I feel like they should have, and I've said this before on here, I feel like they should have traded him after his injury in 2019. And obviously the stocks were probably not that high, but they figured out Gio Urshela is the answer at third base. So let's get rid of Andujar now, not try to make him expendable because he is not expendable. Last spring, and I think it may have been 2020 a little bit as well, but I remember last spring they just started putting him in left field. What are you doing? That's the reason they traded for Joey Gallo, because they didn't have a good left fielder. It was Frazier and Andujar. I mean, two idiots. But they started doing that this year as well. And could I see him as the backup third baseman? Sure. But I don't think he's going to be used like that. I think the Yankees are going to, instead of admitting their losses, I think they're going to go out there and say, hey, listen, rather than cut this guy like we did Clint Frazier, we're just going to keep Andujar on the roster. And if you think about it this way, I don't believe the shit that they're coming out and saying that Stan's going to play the outfield more this year. I don't believe that. Hicks is obviously going to get injured a little bit, and maybe they won't want to put him on the IL immediately. So you're going to need to have two backup outfielders, and really it's 5 outfielders and 1 DH because Stan's not going to play the outfield a ton. Jets mess says Hicks will be on the DL by the 20th game. I'm not going to bet against it. I mean, I have no expectations for him this year. Also, Mullins may not be an Oriole at the All-Star break. If that's the case, you need to trade Trey Mancini as well. I mean,
That's a good point.
Poor two guys. Sox.
All right. So for our outfield, Boston Red Sox are simply going to have four outfielders. It's going to be Jackie, Kike, Alex Verdugo, and JD Martinez. Now, JD's obviously going to play left field as much as possible. He knows how to play the monster well. He can't play center and can't play right. Doesn't have enough range to get back there in that deep corner and right with the pesky pole. But it's plain and simple. He's going to play left field when possible, DH most of the time. And then you have Verdugo out there. You have Kike and Jackie in right. We're going to look a lot for production from Verdugo with the bats. And we got to have Jackie Bradley hitting the ball better. That's one of the big things going into this year is Jackie just has to perform a little bit better. Now, guys are complaining a lot already about Jackie Bradley coming here. He sucks. He can't hit the ball. He's the best defensive outfielder that I've ever seen. And I don't think there's any question about it, but he needs to hit over 200 for me to be happy, I think.
Yeah, I could see that. So next, we got the starting rotation in the bullpen. Now, the Yankees have already announced their starting rotation in a way. It's going to be Cole, it's going to be Severino, Tyon, Montgomery, and Nestor Cortez. Very questionable rotation. Obviously, at the beginning of the show, I mentioned a compliment from Scott Belford from the Walk Off Podcast, who's on my channel yesterday, talking about the depth. Obviously, a lot of those starters that are in the minors, they develop for some reason into relievers. So it's not great source of depth there unless you're running a bullpen day every single day or every other day, like the Tampa Bay Rays. But very questionable rotation, just in my personal opinion. I mean, Severino was dealing with general soreness. It's a big joke in Yankee land right now. General soreness, better than General Patton. But in terms of Severino, he's supposed to pitch on Saturday, I believe, against the Braves. So, I mean, that's going to be interesting to see, interesting to watch. Hopefully, they don't pitch him too much because obviously he's got to start the next week. And with that being said, I mean, he's just an injury machine. I wonder how many starts he's going to make this year. Tyon's a question mark. He was supposed to come back in April, and for some reason he's back now, which I didn't expect, but hopefully he puts together a solid year. Montgomery's a 4 starter. He was, in my opinion, really betrayed by this Yankees offense of not putting up runs, and he probably was among league leaders in no run support, like 1 or less runs every time he started. So, I mean, that's the unfortunate part with him. I think the offense will be slightly better because you acquired Donaldson and, they got a new hitting coach. In terms of Cortez, I mean, everybody loves the memes of the turtle and the mustache and all this other shit. But when it gets to baseball, he's a good reliever, but he can't go more than 4 or 5 innings. That's the problem with the starters. And, obviously you could make him a little bit more expendable in today's era of bullpen days. And, but I don't think he's a long-term starter. Shouts to Daniel Barry. Greg, I'll answer your question. We'll answer your question in just a second. But Sox, what will the rotation look like for the Red Sox?
So your Red Sox are we're looking at Rich Hill to have a big year. A guy that we signed in the offseason, and but Sale's going to be the number one, obviously, if he's healthy. I mean, the guy broke his rib throwing a live BP session. Okay. He's not gonna make opening day. So if we're looking at opening day roster, he's gonna miss. But once he gets his rib healthy, they're gonna take it easy. Of course, Chris Sale needs a lot of time to heal himself. I'm in full support of it, but at what point, do you come on, Chris, let's get you on the mound. Chris Sale's gonna be the number one. Evaldi, hopefully a healthy number 2. Nick Pivetta will be the 3. We're looking at Michael Wacha to be the 4, and then you either have Rich Hill or Tanner Houck at 5. Tanner Houck is impressive. He's a young arm. He throws the ball hard. He's got a little bit of direction, control issues, but that's why I see Rich Hill probably slide into that spot. He has a lot of control, and who knows, Houck could come out of the bullpen. He's a moldable arm. He seems like he just wants to win. So we got Sale, Evaldi, Pivetta, Wacha, and Houck.
Yeah, and I kind of view Rich Hill, and I guess this is maybe when pitchers get older and their arms are getting tired, but Rich Hill's like the Zach Greinke of the Red Sox, and
Agreed.
Greinke just re-signed with the Royals, so it's like 2005 MVP
Yeah.
baseball over again. Albert Pujols actually re-signed with the
Yeah.
Cardinals. I mean, deja vu all over again. And after that, they actually ended up crushing, I think it was the Nationals in spring training. It was like 29-8 or something like that.
I
Spring
did not
training.
see that. Wow.
It was a big score, big deficit. But I definitely expect Rich Hill to be the Zach Greinke. Whether anybody is able to hit him, I think he'll be about average for the Sox. I mean, you don't need him to be fucking Cy Young at this point in
No,
his career, and especially because he's going to be the 5 in your rotation. So,
exactly. If
um,
at all, if he makes the rotation at all.
right, and if not, he's just an expendable bullpen arm.
No.
So, with that being said, move into the bullpen. For the Yankees, I have Michael King, Joely Rodriguez, Albert Abreu, Wandy Peralta, Lucas Lidge, Chad Green, Clay Holmes, Jonathan Loizaga, and Aroldis Chapman. Now, Aaron Boone was talking about Aroldis Chapman playing also an 8th inning role compared to just the 9th inning role, which doesn't make any sense because he gets tired easily. He gets out of control easily. It's like pitching with him in MLB The Show. But with that being said, I don't understand the reason for that. Anyway, I definitely think they keep King because he's expendable. You know, he could start a bullpen day. He's not going to do great. I mentioned that. He's not great as a starter. I think he got blown up in the Phillies game earlier today, which honestly doesn't surprise me, but he is a good reliever, can go long, 1, 2, 3 innings if you need. Joey Rodriguez was a solid pickup last year that I didn't really value at the time from the Texas Rangers in that Joey Gallo trade. So I think he'll play a role. Albert Abreu is, I believe, one of the guys they actually like in the bullpen. I mean, you talk about these guys, the depth of the young staff, Loizaga, Luis Heel, Clark Schmidt, this guy, that guy. I think they like Albert Abreu more than most of those guys. I think they like Abreu more than Heel. I think they like Abreu more than Clark Schmidt. So I think he's going to be making the roster. Now, is it possible he starts the year in AAA? Yes, but I think once a pitcher gets injured, it's going to be him come up to big leagues. Wandy Peralta, I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of his, but he'll make the roster because they need lefties. Same thing could be said for Lucas Lidge. I mean, I'm more of a fan than him. And I really, was impressed a little bit last year because he had not pitched in the major leagues for 6 years. And that's big, but came in, did his job. I think he had like a 3 ERA, so not bad all around. Chad Green, once again, not the biggest fan of, but he will play a role. Obviously, probably is the 7th inning guy, 6th inning guy if your guy can't go long enough, because you do have Clay Holmes, who's probably the 8th inning guy, or Loizaga, however they fit those two in, and then Aroldis Chapman filling out that spot as the closer to my demise.
All right, we got for the Red Sox, I have Matt Barnes, Ryan Brazier, Jake Diekman, Darwinson Hernandez, Sawamura, who, man, this guy's splitter. Watch out for Hirokazu Sawamura's splitter. We did it a lot in the live streams last year. This guy's like, I think he's going to be 37, and he has the best splitter in the game. There's no question about it. Matt Strahm just signed. He's going to be part of the bullpen. We need him to have a big year. Josh Taylor. And I'm a big fan of Josh Taylor. I think his production has come a long way. Austin Davis is going to be a part of the bullpen. The Red Sox needed lefties. I'm not a big fan of his. It seems like he gives up shots every time he comes in the ball game. We have Garrett Whitlock, Phillips Valdez, and that rounds out the bullpen. Cora said that they were going to go with 15 pitchers and 13 position players and 15 pitchers. So we'll carry 15 pitchers, including the starting 5. So that back end of the bullpen is going to struggle with Davis and Josh Taylor, but we need Barnes to have a big year. We need a closer. Like Matt Barnes hasn't had a great year closing last year. So Barnes is going to have to step up. That's for sure.
Yeah. Greg asks, this a couple minutes ago, what do you think of the Mets this year? As an early spoiler, I'm not going to give the prediction out in terms of like where I have them finishing, but I think they'll do better than past years. I think personally, I think they're going to try to lose that mantra of being the first half team and then sucking after the All-Star break. I think they're going to lose that mantra for the reasons of the acquisitions they made this offseason and Buck Showalter. Will they be a deep playoff team? Probably not. But they will be that 500 team, the over 500 team that competes with Buck Showalter and the guys they have. With that being said, that rounds out our 28-man roster predictions. With that being said, we could start going into where everybody will place in the American League. I'm going to get, real quickly, it's right next to me, my index card. Just get this right here. I have a bunch of options that don't work. So. I'm going to test some of these out.
I got, you want me to start? I'll start with my AL East.
If you want to.
We'll start with my AL East. So I believe last time I had Tampa Bay winning the division, and I'm gonna change it up. I'm gonna take Boston to win the division, and now I have to because there's a week until opening day. I'm more excited for a baseball season than I've been in a long time with Trevor Story coming over to Boston. Why not pick them, We're going to take Boston to win the division, and Tampa Bay will finish second. I have Toronto finishing third. You sold me that the Yankees are going to finish fourth, and Baltimore will be at the bottom of the division. Now, I think the Red Sox are going to have to do a lot of work inside that division, especially against Tampa Bay, who have given them a lot of issues in the regular season. We've breezed through the New York Yankees. We're going to have to continue to do that. Toronto Blue Jays going to give everybody a problem. I think their pitching is good. They're going to be playing at home, I believe, right? They're playing at home this year.
Season at home, yep.
Yeah, so they're going to be good. We got to watch out for Toronto. Baltimore is going to be scraping the bottom of the barrel as they do always. And I'm just so excited to get this thing going, man.
Greg asks, Sox, you going to play the new MLB game?
Yes, it comes out in 7 hours and 54 minutes.
54 minutes.
7 hours and 54 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because I got to think what I do, because obviously, just to get off topic for just a second, my friend has kind of in a way convinced me to do only games over PS4 in terms of not disc, but also I could trade in any old games I have, and I know GameStop's gonna fucking rip you off anyway.
Right.
But at least you could just trade in for whatever and then get a discount that's like $5 off.
No, yeah, Grega, thanks for the comment. It's MLB The Show 22, and I got the pre-order, so we got early access 4 days. So tonight at 9 my time, it'll be 12 Eastern. We're going to be hitting bombs with Shohei Ohtani against some little kids online.
Is it cross? Because I know I added you, I think, on PlayStation. Is it crossplay between PS5 and 4, or is it not?
I'm not sure. That's an interesting question, because I know Madden is not. It's not cross-platform, and it's not even PS5 and PS4. But they keep advertising that MLB The Show is now on Switch, so I think you can play against people on other platforms.
Interesting to say the least.
Anyways, go ahead and take your East.
Also, they have new broadcasters, so we don't have to hear Matt Vasgersian anymore.
I did not even know that. Thank you for making my day. That's the best, guys. That's the best news I've heard all day.
Yep, it's I don't even remember the broadcasters.
I don't even care. It's not
Chris Singleton and somebody else, but
okay.
Anyway, for my AL East predictions, I'm gonna buy the Toronto hype. I'm gonna have them finishing first. Finishing second and finishing third. That's gonna be a tough one between the Rays and the Red Sox, just giving a little bit away. In terms of second place, I think the Red Sox are going to do a little bit better, so I will give you the upper hand.
We got a believer here.
Not necessarily a believer of Will. Third, I'll have the Rays. I have my Yankees fourth, and then the Orioles will be scraping the bottom of the barrel.
One of these years, they're going to prove us wrong. One of these years, those Orioles are going to prove us wrong.
And they definitely will.
Yeah.
It's not going to be this year, but it definitely is going to be one of them years.
Yeah.
AL Central is next.
All right. So we're going to go with Chicago. Last time I had the White Sox winning the division. I'm going to stick with them. Chicago's going to win the division, and I have the Twins finishing second.
Okay.
I'm going to put Detroit at third place. And I know that's a stretch, but the Guardians with their new soft name are going to finish the fourth, and the Royals are going to finish last.
Okay, so now my pen starts working again. I think I'm going to match actually all of the predictions there. Chicago first seems like the only real team there. The Twins and the Tigers, I have the Twins then the Tigers, but it feels like management or no management, whatever, it feels like they're taking a step in whatever their process actually is, but they're not any contenders. They're not in my opinion, it was once again a spoiler, they're not going to the playoffs. It's just not going to be their year. Maybe next year, maybe the year after that. The Guardians will be fourth. I mean, I don't even know what to make of them. How many good players they have on that team anymore. Shane Bieber, yes. I think they still have Zach Plesac, Jose Ramirez definitely, but I don't know. That list is shortening by the day.
Yeah.
And then Kansas City at 5. So now on to the West.
On to the AL West. We're going to have, and I had Houston winning last time. I got to stick with it. The Astros are probably going to win that division. I mean, it's a weak division. And this is that one where you just want to decide who wants to actually step on the gas pedal and win. Like, did the Rangers want to go win? They seem like they could surprise us. So I'm going to take the Rangers at second.
It's higher confidence than I have in them.
And I think the Angels will be up there. And I really do think they're going to try to win, but they're going to finish third in the division. It's going to be close between the Rangers and the Angels. They just have two of the best players in the world, man. They got to do something, right? And then we're going to have Seattle and Oakland at the bottom.
Damn, Seattle. I mean, Oakland, I think a lot of people could have predicted. Oof. Okay, so I definitely will agree with you. I'll put the Astros first because they're going to be that team. And my pen want to work? Okay, now it's kind of working. Anyway, I'm going to switch pens. So the Astros will definitely have first. I think without Carlos Correa, they're still going to be at least a competent team. Put Houston there. Second, Adam Frazier was a good acquisition, and I think they made a couple other moves as well. For some reason, I'm buying into Seattle. I don't know why. I think I'm going to buy into Seattle. Number 3, I'm gonna go with Texas here. Obviously they got Simeon, they got Garver, they got Corey Seager. Obviously, there's some injury concerns there, but other than John Gray, their pitching staff is not the greatest, so I don't think that's going to survive in the longest run. Number 4, I'm going to take the Angels. I mean, it's hard for me to actually not put the Angels at the bottom for once, but Noah Syndergaard, some of the other guys they added, I feel like, they could be a better team, not necessarily the team we all expect. And then because also the owner's cheap, Moreno. And then number 5, I'm going to take Oakland with Mark Kotsay in his first year at manager. And obviously, we'll actually fill in the prediction in terms of what Greg was asking earlier about the Mets. So now we head to the National League side.
All right. Should we start with the Mets division?
Yep, the NL East.
NL East, I got the Mets winning. I think the Braves and Mets are going to battle it out. Braves coming off the World Series win. Mets will finish first. The Braves, I got Philadelphia, Washington, and Miami scraping the barrel.
Okay, so I will disagree. I don't think the Mets are going to make that big of a jump. Could be possible. I could be proven wrong months in advance. But I'm going to take the Braves. Even though they lost Freddie Freeman, they still got Brian Snitker as a hell of a manager, getting the team of scraps to the World Series and winning. They also traded for Matt Olson. So I have them at number 1, overcompensating, overachieving, if you want to call it. I have the Mets at 2. As I mentioned earlier, they're not going to make this deep playoff run, but I feel like they're just going to get in. They definitely have a good manager in Buck Showalter. They'll definitely take a step in their process. Number 3, I have the Phillies. They have, improved in some areas. Obviously, they signed Corey Knebel for the bullpen. Aaron Nola needs a bounce-back year, so there's a lot of questions there. They signed Kyle Schwarber. They signed Nick Castellanos. So that's an outfield right there, but also not the greatest defensively. So I'm going to take the Phillies at 3rd. Number 4, I'm going to take, let's see, you got Washington, you got Miami. I'm going to take Washington very slightly, and then I will have Miami scraping that bottom of the barrel, like Sox puts it. Now we go to the NL Central.
All right, NL Central. Mine has stayed the same for the NL Central. There's not been a lot of movement in that division. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't really follow the NL Central that much, but St. Louis is going to win the division in my eyes. Cincinnati's like always that mid-tier team in that division that I want to root for. They're going to finish second. I got Milwaukee at third, the Cubs at fourth, and Pittsburgh. And they always do the same thing, man. They clearly don't want to win. We talked about it a little bit earlier with some other teams, but those guys just want to sell seats and have people look at the ballpark. It's obvious. I hate when teams do that, man. They just make their money and keep going. I hate it.
Well, I mean, I don't understand the limit for these type of owners because yeah, you're selling seats and like for instance, PNC Park's beautiful, but it's not much of a meeting when when literally tickets behind home plate are like $35, $53. So, I mean, there's just no meaning there unless it's a tourist thing. But Pittsburgh's very loyal in terms of their teams, at least for the most part. So, in terms of the NL Central, I'm going to take the Cardinals first. I'll take Milwaukee second. I'm honestly considering taking the Cubs third. Now, obviously, they haven't impressed, with any offseason moves. However, with that being said, the Reds traded away Sonny Gray to the Twins, and they're just in a weird spot. Like, last year they made some progress, but I don't necessarily feel too positive about them. However, I still am going to put them third. I'll put the Cubs fourth, and number 5, I will take the Pirates.
Okay. And one of my favorite divisions in all of baseball. One that I think the Diamondbacks are going to finish bottom in. We'll start with the Padres. I'll take them to win the division over the Dodgers. I'm going to make a hot take. I really hope it happens. I need somebody except the LA to win that division. So we're going to speak it into existence. We got the Padres, the Dodgers, the Rockies, the Giants, and the Diamondbacks, which pains me to say, but I don't think they're going to be competitive at all. They don't have any pitching. Their offense is all young, and shout out to Ketel Marte. He's a baller, but that division's too good. San Diego's electric with their young studs. Manny Machado, veteran leader. They got good pitching. Didn't they just get Luke Voit?
Yeah.
And yeah, they're going to win that division. Put it on the books.
Yeah, so hot take there. Now, let me ask you a question. Who'd you have finishing higher? I just want to make sure I didn't misquote this. Did you have the Padres, not the Padres, the Rockies, the Giants finishing higher?
I got the Giants in fourth.
Wow.
I know, excuse me. Yeah, I got the Giants in fourth.
You didn't take that big of a drop off, really?
They had a random year where they started pitching well. Their pitching was really good last year. I don't see it carrying over, especially within the division. The Dodgers are going to dominate them. The Padres are probably going to rough them up pretty good too. They just had a good year. I think it's one of those times, like one of those times the Orioles are going to surprise us here pretty soon. It just happens.
Yeah. So number 1, I'm going to go mainstream. And if I had to pick a second favorite team that wasn't the Yankees, well, actually, no, if I had to pick a favorite team that wasn't the Yankees, I'd take the Dodgers because obviously their roots are here in New York. If you know your baseball history. With that being said, I'm taking the Padres second. I think they'll actually be in the playoffs. Number 3, I'm not buying what you're selling on these Giants, though I definitely think it's possible they take a drop off. I just don't think it's going to be worse than the Rockies. The Rockies signed Chris Bryant, which was very, very puzzling. They also traded, they let John Gray go, and same thing with Trevor Story. Number 4, I'm going to take the Rockies. And then Diamondbacks, once again, are going to be the bottom feeders of the West Desert.
They had such a beautiful ballpark too. I love them. I really do. If that would be my favorite team by far. If I wasn't a diehard Red Sox fan, I just love going to Diamondbacks games. It just sucks that they're not any good.
Okay, so now we could stay on the NL side and predict who makes the playoffs. Sox, I'll have you go first.
Yeah, so on the NL side, I'll take the Padres and the Dodgers based off of my division winners. We'll take the Padres and the Dodgers. We'll take St. Louis And then the Mets and the Braves. We need one more. Cincinnati. We'll take 2 from each division.
Wow, Cincinnati making the playoffs. That'd be weird. But
They're
it's
gonna
not
do it.
totally impossible. I'm going to take 2 from the NL East, the Braves and the Mets. I think the Phillies are going to be over 500. They're just not going to be in the playoffs, obviously. The NL Central, I'm taking one team, and that's the Cardinals. They got a new manager, but that was obviously due to analytical differences and philosophical differences. In the West, I'm taking 3 teams. I'm taking the Dodgers, the Padres, and the Giants. Now, the Giants, I feel like, could be that 6th seed where they really don't deserve to be there. I think they will take a drop off because I feel like last year was just, out of the blue they were good, and they won that division, right? Is that correct? I think they
Yes.
won that division. They won the division, but I think reality is going to smack them right in the face. I think they'll be in the playoffs. I just don't think they're going to last too long. But yeah, 6th seed San Francisco Giants. So now we move to the American League side.
American League, I'm gonna go with Boston and Tampa Bay in the AL East. Toronto's gonna be better than 500, probably by a long shot, but I see Boston and Tampa Bay winning a lot of games. We'll take the White Sox out of their division and probably 3 from Houston's division. I'll take the Angels, like I said when I
Wow.
was picking them. They're gonna ball out this year. I really do think so. Houston, Texas, and the Angels.
Oof. All right. I think I had these predictions the last time. I'm taking 3 out of the AL East, probably one of the more competitive divisions in baseball. I'm taking Toronto. I'm taking the Boston Red Sox. I'm taking the Rays. I think the Rays will squibble in there. I think the Rays, actually, no. I think they'll be better than the Mariners by some competitive advantage. I'll take Chicago as the only one out of the Central. And then out of the West, I will take Houston and Seattle. Now, here's my question. Here's which will finish off these type of predictions. Then we could go into breakout candidates and guys that could make their MLB debut or any All Stars for our teams this year. Um, Let me ask you this: any changes to your World Series prediction?
No, I got mine the same. I got the Dodgers and the Rays.
Hmm. Puts me in a tough position.
I think the Red Sox are going to get their hearts torn out in the playoffs.
I wouldn't be too surprised at that. I'd probably laugh, but I would have no rights, no foundation to stand on because by my prediction, I don't have my team making the playoffs. I'm going to take Toronto. I don't know why. Maybe it was just because I bought all the goods on the Los Angeles Rams this year and actually had them winning the Super Bowl.
Ah, you okay?
But
Dude, Toronto. I go ahead. Go ahead.
I have Toronto on the AL side. The NL side, in my opinion, is hard for me to predict because you had the Braves, who, with some of the young cats, and then with some of the other veterans, they just pushed to the World Series and won. I also kind of want to choose the Dodgers, the Padres too, because I feel like they could be very good, possibly going to the World Series. So I'm going to take, and it would be really weird or really a deja vu, for lack of better words, for the Braves and the Blue Jays to be in the World Series, knowing that was 1992. Um, I for some reason I think the Dodgers are going to choke again in the playoffs. Fuck it, Dodgers Padres. Not Dodgers Padres. That maybe in the
Hey,
championship series, Toronto Padres.
that would be an exciting championship series. All
And I
right,
would have
cool.
to root for the Padres because you know Toronto's our rival. But I'm
Right.
buying for some reason. I'm buying that rival
Nice.
coffee,
I love it.
Toronto
Let's
and
go.
Padres for the World Series.
Damn, that's a hot take, man. I
Could
like it.
definitely happen.
I
You were
like it.
saying on Toronto before.
Dude, they stink. I think wait till you see them just get shelled. Their pitching is nowhere to be found, especially in this division. I really think they're going to fall apart quickly. I think they're going to be mid, maybe a little bit better than 500.
Interesting take to have. Now, we could probably mix these two next predictions in team breakout candidates and possible all stars.
Yeah, sure. Okay. I think Jaron Duran is the spotlight. I think the guy has speed. He can hit the ball far with power. He's can hit the ball anywhere on the field. Jaron Duran might not make the opening day roster, but him and Jonathan Arauz are the two guys that I'm looking to maybe come up and be fan favorites. The young guys, maybe if there's any injuries on the squad, hopefully we all stay healthy and can stick with our starters. But Jonathan Arauz and Jaron Duran, Bobby Dahlbeck is pretty much concrete a starter now, and which is crazy. Just came up spring training 2 years ago. Boom, you're going to be our starting first baseman over 162 games probably. So look up for Duran and Arauz, and for all stars, I think Devers and Xander are going to be probably the two representatives for the Red Sox, like they were last year. It's unbelievable what those two can do on that left side of the infield, and they just hit the ball. The power that Devers has is ridiculous. The guy with any fastball left up in the zone, anywhere in the middle, he's going to destroy it. He has the highest exit velocity of any baseball player there is, probably in the last 2 years or maybe 3 years. So we're going to go with Xander Bogaerts, Rafael Devers as the two all-star representatives for the Red Sox, and we're going to look for Jaron Duran and Jonathan Arauz to be the two breakout players.
Breakout players. I have 3 breakout candidates. Now, I will tell you, obviously, who I possibly bank on. Now, 3 breakout candidates for me. I have Joey Gallo, Luis Severino, and Gleyber Torres. Who am I banking on? I'm not going to bank on him, as I say, but I'm going to expect a little bit more. And I will be disappointed if he doesn't do something. That's Gleyber Torres. He's had a nice spring, and the Yankees have given him 1,000 different chances at 1,000 different positions. Shortstop, second base, wherever they want to put him. If he doesn't improve offensively, which is where it needs to be this year, whether it's contact hitter, whether it's getting on base, whether it's going out there and hitting for power, whatever they need him to be, he needs to be that player. Now, obviously, some situations aren't fair with the Yankees and the construction of the roster, but they've given him another chance. And there's no reason he shouldn't eclipse this opportunity and finally take that chance. I don't think Joey Gallo is going to have a good year. People are expecting this rebound, and I understand he's the player he is and all this other stuff, but I just feel like that he's not going to be smart in terms of baseball IQ and hit against the shift. I think he's not going to tap into the left side. He's going to keep hitting it into 3 infielders on the right side of the infield. That's just my opinion. Sevy, I don't think is going to stay healthy. I mean, people are expecting him to come back and probably be a real number 2 starter. I don't think that's happening. Maybe he's better than, prior years. And I know he used to crash after the All-Star break and all this other stuff, but I just don't expect him to be he's one of the breakout candidates I listed. I don't expect him to fulfill that opportunity. So Gleyber Torres I have as the breakout candidate. In terms of all-stars, I gotta that poses a good question myself. I think Judge could be an all-star, doing his thing. I don't think Giancarlo Stanton's gonna be an all-star. He had an awesome year last year, probably the best year in pinstripes. I don't think he was an all-star, but sometimes fan voting impacts that. In terms of other all-stars, I honestly think that's it. I mean, maybe DJ LeMahieu, maybe, but that's just a little bit of a stretch. As a contact hitter, top of the lineup, used to be he win the batting title a couple of years ago. So he could also be another breakout candidate, kind of a rebound candidate like Gleyber Torres. But I'd probably put more eggs in the basket for DJ LeMahieu than I would Gleyber Torres.
Well, I would take more eggs in the basket with him over Stanton as well.
Yeah, I mean, Stan had a good year last year, but, he stayed healthy for most of it. I just don't think it's going to happen this year for whatever reason. You have a player who is either on a contract year, they just do good for some random reason, and then they drop right down. Like, I'm not going to say it's a drastic drop for Stanton, but it's kind of like we were talking about the San Francisco Giants, where their pitching kind of got them to overachieve last year. They will be a good team, but it's not going to be what they were last year winning the division.
Mm-hmm.
So my next question is guys that will make their debut in the MLB this year and play a little bit of a role player kind of role. So I'll start off with you.
That's a good question. For the Red Sox, I was looking for Ryan Fitzpatrick to possibly be the guy that makes his MLB debut this year. The last couple of years, the Red Sox have not had a lot of guys that are making debuts. Like I said, it's been besides second base, there's not a lot of holes in our defense. So look for Ryan Fitzpatrick to come up and play some infield. I don't know if he's going to become a role player or a constant because these guys are so versatile out in the outfield. I don't think it's going to happen. If we ever need help, Kike can go anywhere. Verdugo can really go anywhere in the outfield. Trevor Story is versatile in the infield. Xander Bogaerts can switch around. So I don't see anybody really becoming a role player, but I really want Fitzy to come up and play. That's really what I'm looking forward to.
For me, I don't think. Well, let's put it this way: the Yankees can get 2 players up in September. I think that's the new rule now for the last few years. It's not all the call ups. I kind of miss those days. Not going to lie to you, but I think Volpe will be there, and I don't think he's going to make any impact whatsoever like they would expect some other guys to. I mean, that's only in a limited time. Plus, he's starting out in AA this year, I believe. So that's where it's going to be. But in terms of players that will come up and be a role player, I somewhat expect Oswald Peraza to be. I mean, they didn't go out and pursue a shortstop or any type of real infield improvements because they're looking at Peraza and Volpe. I expect the Peraza to come up, play shortstop, play third base, play wherever he can, and do a little bit of role playing. I mean, Marwin Gonzalez, sure, on off days. And once again, I'm not going to expect too much based on sample size. So Peraza, maybe some of the relief arms as well. Clark Schmidt, hopefully he gets another chance. Luis Gil a little bit more if they don't fuck around with him and his confidence like they did Deivi Garcia. Estevan Florial, maybe. If Hicks gets hurt, and I honestly would take to the bank that he does get hurt, and I wouldn't be surprised at that. But I can't see. No, I can in a Yankees standpoint, but I can't see Tim LaCastro being a center fielder starter for a little while in time. For some reason, I just can't see that. So, with that being said, Sox, if you have any final thoughts to add, and we can start closing it out here.
I think we're grooving. This podcast is a lot of fun. Shout out to the people in the chat that are helping us out, growing both channels. Make sure everybody subscribes to Big Blue in the Bronx. Everybody checking this out on my channel, go over there. We'll drop the link in the description. I'm trying to grow his channel as well. And this podcast is very unique with the Red Sox and Yankees fan doing a podcast together, talking about the entire MLB, AL East, both of our teams, whatever it is, other sports. We were talking basketball a little bit. We were talking football a little bit. We'll probably expand it. Who knows? But it's been a lot of fun. We're looking forward to opening day. I'm going to be live here. He's going to be at the game, and he's going to be checking in here live couple times, maybe a few times throughout the game, showing us the view from the seats. Hopefully it's a nice sunny day on opening day, and we're going to have a lot of fun. So April 7th, that's going to be 10 a.m. here my time, and then I believe 1 o'clock over there, correct? And it's going to be a lot of fun. We appreciate everybody stopping by. We're going to be live as well after the game to wrap up all the other games, hopefully the Red Sox beating up on the Yankees. Thank you, Joseph, for hanging out. Thank you, Grega. I appreciate Tony Clark being here. Been a lot of fun, guys. With Alex closing remarks.
Shout outs to Joe, by the way. I don't know if I've ever revealed this, but I went to high school with Joe.
Hey, okay. What's up, Joe?
With that being said, let me actually take a look at the weather. And now, obviously, yeah, it should show the weather because it's 7 days from now.
Yeah,
I know it's supposed to be cloudy, at least for right now. But let's take a look. At least what the Weather Channel says. Next Thursday, it's supposed to fucking rain. God damn it.
Dude, if we get rained out on opening day, I'm going to probably throw something.
I'm going to throw something too because that would be the second time. In 2016, well, back when I lived in Pennsylvania, so it was a little bit harder. We bought tickets to opening day, and I took off of school that day. Then it rained out, and I'm like, you know what? You got to be kidding me, man. And then we went the next day, and then they lost.
There's nothing like having tickets to a game that gets rained out.
I've had that happen twice, and one was obviously what I just mentioned, and the Rail Riders as well, the Yankees minor league team. And I never got to go to the postponement of that game, unfortunately. But with that being said, obviously another great Dead Red episode. You're not going to find another duo like this on YouTube, a Yankees and a Red Sox fan going at it. During the season, it's going to get more intense with debates, trash talk, all this stuff. We'll definitely be calling games throughout the season. Obviously, opening day is going to be a big one for us. I'm going to be checking in from the stadium while Sox is going to have the call on here. In terms of my content, I'll try to get some maybe mock drafts or some Giants content out. I know the draft is getting closer and closer as the days go on. Next Monday, we'll be having Gary Sheffield Jr. on the Boys in the Big Apple podcast, and we'll also be having a Rays content creator on to kind of discuss the AL East a little bit as well, kind of like we did with Scott Belford. We're going to have a big live show for NYY News TV next week, next Wednesday, to be specific, starting around 8, 2-hour show. So you get to see all of us just interacting and stuff like that, talking about predictions and stuff like that. Once again, we'll be live after the game at some point to discuss the game and other games that have been going on. It's going to be a fun one. It's going to be a fun season. Definitely looking forward to baseball. Once again, if you haven't already, go subscribe to Sox's channel, even though he's a Red Sox fan. Subscribe to his other channel, Big Beat Reactions. And with that being said, peace out, guys. See you later, and we will see you next Thursday, opening day, Yankees Red Sox. Peace.
Go Sox, baby.